they were really approaching the problem as a public policy problem. Like, how do we get more people to ride public transit? How do we get people to use bike share? We've got a lot of people moving into the city, people who are living in, newly built buildings and have never used these before. Maybe they, were in college, maybe they were somewhere where they drove everywhere. How do we educate them and help influence them to try out these different options?
Most corporations don't merely exist on paper. They exist in a physical location with a workforce that needs to travel there. In the 21st century, the problem is complicated. As cities grow denser, public transportation becomes more relied on, and new options, such as bike share programs and rideshare startups, are always entering the mix. On the latest UpTech Report, I interview Matt Caywood, the founder and CEO of Transitscreen, a company that's working to help organizations navigate the complexities of getting their employees from point A to point B. Their main product allows people to glance at a screen and see in real time a full range of current transportation options, including trains, buses, ride shares, bicycles, and cars. Information that can affect everything from getting home to relocating your headquarters. Matt, I'm excited to have our conversation today and really dig into Transitscreen and why you started it and the problem that you're looking to solve in the world. To begin, I'd like you to describe your company and why it exists in a very brief 5 seconds. What would you say?
We solve the problem of helping people know what and where they can take transportation in mostly an urban environment. So to make it a little bit simpler than that, I used to leave the lab late at night when I was in grad school, and I would have a choice of buses, and I never knew where to go to pick them up or when they were coming. And giving me that information right as I was leaving the building, that's the goal of Transitscreen.
Got it. And I love it. Just you experienced the problem already and you're like, wow, okay, this needs to be solved. This started in 2013. You co-founded this company?
Yeah, that's right. And I was a little bit of a government project actually before that. So I was advising this kind of government research project in Arlington, Virginia. I was also working at a national lab at the time in the DC area. And like many government projects, it created some really interesting technology, some novel technology that didn't really exist before, and kind of lacked a commercialization strategy. So I ended up being the person who kind of found my way to that responsibility and to commercializing it in the form of startup.
Wow. And this is the first company that you've led?
The first real company that I've led. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had online, rare book business, not the same.
Not the same at all when it comes to technology software, but you being able to have that start already had the technology, but then bringing it to market. Can you describe kind of that evolution over the past 7 years of what you thought the problem was and the pain that was felt and how that's changed?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we were working with on the government side, they were really approaching the problem as a public policy problem. Like, how do we get more people to ride public transit? How do we get people to use bike share? We've got a lot of people moving into the city, people who are living in, newly built buildings and have never used these before. Maybe they, were in college, maybe they were somewhere where they drove everywhere. How do we educate them and help influence them to try out these different options, right? And so that was the fundamental policy problem. But the real kind of, where the rubber met the road was when we, meaning myself and my co-founder, Ryan, who's sort of the business development side of our company at the time, found our way to all these different industries that had problems relating to the new transportation forms that were becoming available in cities, right? So you look at real estate owners who are paying a premium to be located close to new transportation options or to metro or the subway or even bike share. And you're looking at employers who wanted to be in these environments. And so we were really focused on helping them get the maximum value of their investment by either using this kind of information, this transportation information, to help sell their properties or to help them influence the people who are going to be working or living in these buildings.
How has that then kind of evolved with your current client base that you see going forward, that the biggest growth area?
Yeah, I think we've found that we have solutions that benefit companies who are heavily invested in the functioning of these transportation networks,
Mm.
right? Look at like Amazon building HQ2 in Arlington, right? They needed to be proximate to are on top of services that can move a lot of people for their workforce.
Mhm.
And so when we when we kind of started off, we were thinking, it's really going to be, well, actually, we thought it was government early on. We thought government was going to be paying for the service. And then we realized that B2G is a whole different ballgame, is really, really a lot more challenging. So we decided to focus on working with the real estate customers. And then that led us to evolve to providing solutions for corporate workforces and really, major employers, they're all going to be dealing with transportation issues, whether it's going into into distributed workforce and managing all the different transportation options people will need to go to little offices, or whether it's making sure that if everyone starts driving to the main headquarters, you don't have a parking calamity,
Mm.
like all of transportation, as is very much in flux right now, but we're trying to stay on top of that.
Help me understand even a bit more of the technology of why it's different, of why someone just can't do it themselves, or other products or services out there.
Yeah, like a lot of these things, many of our best customers have been ones who have tried to do it themselves over time and found that it really wasn't their core competency, right? And so we as a company have stayed very, very closely tied to the transportation industry, keeping up with all the changes, keeping up with the introduction of new micro-mobility options like scooters and bike shares, and so occasionally their disappearance, and doing this on a global level, right? So not just in US and North America, but also increasingly in Europe or Australia or some of these other markets. And for some of our customers, especially corporate customers, they have an international footprint, so they need solutions that apply internationally. So it's partly our deep data expertise, and then also just the fact that we're entirely focused on solving these business problems that other companies that have maybe consumer solutions just can't be, right? So I think it's our intense customer focus coupled with our deep transportation expertise that makes us successful in this industry.
Niching down and focusing on one particular industry and problem definitely helps create a solution that can't be easily found elsewhere. You talk about your focus on data. Where are you collecting all this information? How have you built up this ecosystem of then that truly can help that differentiates you?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a time-consuming process and definitely an investment. You know, we started. I was kind of a data junkie. I was really into understanding where these new transportation feeds and real-time data were coming from, and so we've just stayed on top of that progressively over time. Open data, is part of the solution. So governments and transit agencies providing data to all comers. Some of what we do, we consume practically, I don't know, 3,000 data feeds from all over the world, right? And
Wow.
in maybe 300 different formats. And so a lot of those are not open data. Some of them are, but there's increasingly a lot of them that are just coming in different ways. And so just managing that is definitely a big part of the challenge, and something where we've built a lot of capacity over time.
You mentioned the need, particularly going to corporate, where they have offices all over. Are you getting more international in your delivery? What's that look like?
Yeah, it's been largely customer driven. So they're pulling us into new markets, saying, "Hey, do you have Tel Aviv? Do you have Sydney? Do you have what other markets can you give us?" And that's one of those things where we're very happy to help, because I think it really just speaks to the fact that we are the solution provider that people are looking for. With this kind of international footprint. And, it also, if we have to go out and get data in a new city, it makes it really not easy for us to say, oh, by the way, this large company that you probably know about is asking. It's not us. You've never heard of us, but it's these guys who are asking for it.
It gives you credibility to be able to make those requests and move into those spaces.
Yeah, that's right.
That makes sense. That kind of growth. Then, moving forward from here, then what do you see as the future for you, both in the near term with the current ecosystem that exists, and the long term of like 5 years from now that you're heading towards, and you see down the pipeline? What's coming up next?
Yeah, so I think like anyone else in this kind of COVID time, right? The biggest question is how are how's the economy going to change, and how are our customers going to change as a result of this, right? And you look at the data on companies going back to work. Everyone's got a plan to go back, in some form or another, but maybe there'll be more distributed work, maybe there'll be more remote work, and understanding that creates more complexity that makes it harder for companies to kind of manage their footprint. I think in the long run is something that we're very interested in looking there and looking for solutions with our partners and our customers that could help them address these kinds of challenges. Certainly in terms of urban transportation, transit networks are going to be very troubled for a while, after this. And you're going to see longer headways between, vehicles. You're going to see more crowding, perhaps limited capacity, all stuff that requires real-time information to make it work smoothly, right? Because if, the difference between a classic kind of European transit network where you can show up, and something's coming every 2 minutes or 3 minutes, versus a more of an American kind of experience where it's like coming every 20 minutes. If it's 20 minutes, you really need the information, and you need the information everywhere, not just in your mobile, like you need a screen, because otherwise you're going to end up having a bad experience, right? And so for us, like understanding and that these things are going to change and are going to create, I think more demand for these kinds of products in the long run is a very important direction for us.
Mm-hmm. Where can people go to learn more about your company, and what's a good first step for them to take?
Yeah, so transitscreen.com is our website, and we work with so many different types of customers. I think people should look at the solutions page and figure out what exactly it is that aligns with their own interests. But whether you're coming at it from an angle of real estate or corporate workforce, or even smart cities, stadiums, you name it, event spaces. We can fit into the transportation management needs of a lot of different areas. And we also just recently launched our first API page. So we've got a bunch of different APIs for companies that have apps or websites that need real-time transportation information. We can provide that on a highly customized basis and kind of meet anyone where they are. So that's a new initiative for us, and one that we've seen a lot of traction with recently.
Be sure to check out part 2 of my conversation with Matt, in which he talks more about the challenges he overcame to launching a new startup, and shares an interesting strategy he employed that involved using government regulatory restrictions as a way to introduce his product to new customers.